Hey, what's going on, guys? Rhino here, and I'm bringing you this video because I've been following these two Twitter accounts, Atheist or Think Atheist and Atheist World. They'll be in the title of the video if I can get my friend to do it properly, and they'll also be in the description of the video, hopefully. But basically, there are these two Twitter accounts that I've been following for a while that post tweets and pictures related to atheism, and I agree with almost all of them fully. They make good points. Some of them are mainly for comedic value. Others are making honest points. But I would highly suggest that anyone who is interested in debating for atheism or against atheism should follow these accounts, because these accounts bring up things you can and can't do when you're arguing. For example, right here I have a picture that I'm going to go over real quick. Actually, they didn't tweet this; they retweeted it. But they've tweeted other things that relate to this, and it's a list of the logical fallacies that Christians oftentimes use when presenting arguments. And this is one of the reasons why I don't personally debate, especially not live debates, is because of the illogical fallacies that people use, especially straw manning. Straw manning pisses me off. But I'm going to go over the logical fallacies and the brief description for each. A lot of these I've seen numerous times. Other ones, not as much, but they still exist. And so, yeah. To anyone wondering why I don't do live debates, why I only do video responses, is because of logical fallacies. I hate trying to explain why you can't use an argument because it contains a fallacy when it's a live debate, especially because a Christian will oftentimes, I've seen in videos, will present an argument with a fallacy. Like they'll straw man, and then they can't understand why we don't fully respond to their argument, because the straw manning is basically, in a sense, I'll explain it in a second, but basically belittling an argument or making it easier to target by not actually arguing the true argument that someone is making, the true evidence that someone is posting. And it makes it really, really hard to argue with someone when they're doing that, because not only do you have to argue your side, but you also have to show them that they're being retarded by using some of these fallacies. And so I'm just going to go over this. This, once again, is a picture. It was tweeted by Atheist World, but Think Atheist has tweeted some pictures similar to this as well. So this is the list of logical fallacies that I'm going to go over, and it contains a brief description. It's a really low quality image, and so I can't fully read it, but I'll try to explain it as best as I can with the brief description. So the first one is straw man, the one that I brought up: misrepresenting or exaggerating someone's argument to make it easier to attack. So many Christians are guilty of this because they use it constantly. The slippery slope fallacy, asserting that if we allow A to happen, then Z will happen consequently. Therefore, A should not happen. I've heard this sometimes, not as often, but actually I've heard slippery slope the most with when it comes to like drugs and stuff like that. Like, I think weed should be legal. But then people say, oh, well, if you smoke weed, then, 2 years down the road, you're going to be doing cocaine and meth and heroin and shit like that. And no, that's not how it works. And that's not even a true argument unless you can provide solid proof of that happening. I know tons of people who have been smoking weed for years and they still only smoke weed. Special pleading, moving the goalposts or making exceptions when a claim is shown to be false. Yeah, that a lot of Christians definitely do that. The gambler's fallacy, believing that I can't read that. I think it says believing that runs occur to statistically independent phenomena such as roulette wheel spins. I haven't heard this one as much, gambler's fallacy, at least personally. I may not have recognized it because I don't fully understand it, but that is That is one of the fallacies that are commonly used. Black or white fallacy, where two alternative states are presented as the only possibilities when in fact more possibilities exist. Obviously, Christians are very, very guilty of that. Well, not Christians, sorry. People arguing for Christianity. The false cause fallacy, presuming that a real or perceived relationship between things means that one is the cause of the other. Ad hominem. This one is something I see all the time from the really religious debaters. Ad hominem is attacking your opponent's character or personal traits instead of engaging with their argument. Sorry. I've heard this so many times. There's this video by Shock of God about he has a bunch, but one where he was talking about how I think it was just talking about how God exists, and he was saying that like atheists are gay and atheists are like their arguments are so gay, and he never like actually responds to any of the arguments made by atheists. He just attacks our character. Ad hominem. Loaded question, asking a question that has an assumption built into it so that it can't be answered without appearing guilty. Luckily, Christians, when a Christian debater does this, typically the atheist or scientific debater is able to point that out and be like, that is a loaded, like that. Well, they don't say loaded question. They say like, oh, well, that's not this, or, you know, they are able to work their way around it, luckily. But it still is unfair and dishonest for a Christian to use a loaded question. Bandwagon, appealing to popularity or the fact that many people do something is an attempted form of validation. This is definitely one. I mean, Christians say, oh, well, so many people in the U.S. are Christians, so the U.S. is a Christian nation, which is not true at all. It says in the Constitution that, you know, we're like we were found on religious freedom. I mean, just do simple Google searches and you'll find where in the Constitution it says we are not to be, like, it specifically says we are not founded as a Christian nation. Begging the question, a circular argument in which the conclusion is concluded in the premise. Yeah, I've heard that sometimes, but it's definitely one that people should watch out for. Appeal to authority, using the opinion or position of an authority, figure, or institution of authority in place of an actual argument. Yeah. Appeal to authority definitely applies, like in the Ken Ham versus Bill Nye debate, when Ken Ham opened up and he was appealing to authority by saying, oh, well, you know, there's this scientist and this scientist and this scientist and this scientist and this scientist, and they all agree with what I believe, as if that's some sort of validation that what they believe is correct. Appeal to nature, making the argument that because something is natural, it is therefore valid, justified, inevitable, or ideal. The only time appeal to nature is able to be successfully used is like when people say, well, being gay is unnatural, and then you can point out the flaws in that, saying that being gay is natural. However, that's not the argument as to why homosexuality is, you know, okay. There are many other arguments, and so appeal to nature applies a couple, like exceptions can be made, but appeal to nature still is something that is a logical fallacy that Christians oftentimes commit. Composition division, assuming that what's true about one part of something has to be applied to all or other parts of it. The Bible. People find one semi-factual thing in the Bible, and they're like, oh my God, that means the whole Bible must be true. Nope. Anecdotal, using personal experience or an isolated example instead of valid argument, especially to dismiss statistics. Personal experience, yes, I've heard this numerous times, definitely. I haven't heard it as much to dismiss statistics, but it's definitely, like, this is just an overview of the fallacy itself. But yeah, I have heard a lot of Christians using personal experience, like saying, oh, well, I felt God, to explain that God exists, when that's not true evidence. Appeal to emotion, manipulating an emotional response in place of a valid or compelling argument. I believe that Pascal's wager would fall under this. I'm not sure about that, but it sounds like it would, because it's an appeal to the emotion of comfort and knowing that when you die, you don't just just go away, that you have the possibility of going to heaven, and it's safer to believe than to not believe, kind of like strike the fear factor. Tu quo. God, avoiding having to engage with criticism by turning it back on the accuser, answering them with criticism. I haven't really heard this one before, or at least I didn't recognize it. This one, burden of proof, saying that the burden of proof lies not with the person making the claim, but with someone else to disprove. Burden of proof, this is the big problem with Christian debaters, is they say, well, you have no proof that God doesn't exist. We're not the ones who have the burden of proof. Atheists do not have the burden of proof. Christians have the burden of proof because they're making the claim that God exists. It's on you, based on logic and how logic works, how debating and arguing works. It's on Christians to prove that God exists. No True Scotsman. This one is pretty often used by Christians, making what could be called an appeal to purity a way to dismiss relevant criticisms or flaws of an argument. No True Scotsman is most seen by Christians saying, oh, well, they're not true Christians, or they're not true Muslims, they say, oh, well, so-and-so isn't true something, and that's wrong. I mean, the No True Scotsman fallacy isn't something you can use in an argument. It is a fallacy. The Texas sharpshooter, cherry-picking data clusters to use an argument or finding a pattern to fit a presumption. Kind of, the way I see this is basically like bending the data to support you. Like it says, cherry-picking data. Christians are notorious for this. Actually, even more than Christians, feminists are the most notorious for cherry-picking data. Actually, in a lot of cases, using false data to make their case. But Christians definitely are guilty of this a lot. The fallacy, presuming that because a claim has been poorly argued or a fallacy has been made that is necessarily wrong. This is not really something that Christians do. Actually, I haven't heard atheists really do it either. But if someone uses a fallacy, it doesn't mean their argument is wrong. It just means that they didn't argue it properly, or they can't go about it arguing it that way. And so the fallacy definitely comes into play, but I haven't really heard Christians have a problem with that, because they usually aren't the ones who point out fallacies. It's usually atheists. Personal incredulity, I think that says. It's pretty grainy, god dang. I can't read that. Personal incredulity, saying that because one finds something difficult to understand, that it's therefore not true. Yeah. That definitely applies to Christians. Ambiguity, using double meanings or using ambiguous language to mislead or misrepresent the truth. I haven't heard Christians use this all that much, but it's something that definitely exists. Genetic, judging something good or bad on the basis of where it comes from or from whom it comes. The only time I've really heard the from whom it comes part would be Christians saying that someone who comes from an atheist household is already predisposed to be bad. Like they're bad, they're horrible. And then also like the opposite side, saying that people who come from highly religious parents and are religious are more predisposed to be good and usually are good and will end up good. And the last one, middle ground, saying that a compromise or middle point between two extremes is the truth. This would be more like for moderate Christians, saying that, okay, well, I don't agree with these extremists, but I don't agree with the atheists, so I'm in the middle ground, therefore what I believe is true. Coming to a middle ground is not proof of anything. It's not the truth. You can't come to that conclusion. That's pretty self-explanatory, and it's funny because the picture says like, "Thou shalt not commit logical fallacies." These are the big problems with arguing with Christians. If you go through some of these two Twitter accounts pages, you'll find things that say okay, well, I'm open to debate, but you have to be willing to follow these specific rules. And it's pretty funny, some of the things they say, because it's true. The arguments that Christians make it hard to argue back because they use things that make it not unfair, but make their arguments not wrong, but invalid. It invalidates them because of the way they use them, like a loaded question. That's about it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure to comment, rate, and subscribe. Go follow these two Twitter accounts. They'll be linked in the description below. They're really cool. They're really awesome, and highly suggest checking them out. But yeah, thanks for watching, and have a nice day.